morning to everyone. Welcome to week 5. The topic before us is outlining, note taking, note making, and summary writing. Outlining, note taking, note making. Note taking is a process that is outlining, note making, note taking are processes that are going to inculcate you into the main learning system at the university. It will inculcate you into the main learning system at the university. What do I mean by this? That at every point in time when you are attending lectures, you are bound to take down notes. You are bound to make some outlining. And again, you are also bound to make your own notes. What have I said here? I said at the university, you have many functions and many duties to perform. And all these functions are culminated into the prospect or the aspect of outlining, note making, note taking, and summary writing. As students at the university, you are to attend lectures. In fact, that is the reason why you are here, to attend lectures. And attending lectures does not mean that you sit down at the lecture hall to press your phones or to chat with your friends or to disturb the lecturer, but you are to take down notes. And how do you take down the notes? It is by the aspect of outlining. Outline as in jot down the important points that the lecturer is saying or the lecturers are saying, because there are many courses that are exposed to you or you shall be exposed to at the university or you're currently exposed to at the university, and you are bound to take down notes on all those courses. And taking down notes on all those courses, at the end of the day, you shall sit down and make your own notes. Sitting down to make your own notes inculcate you being able to record salient points out of all what the lecturers are teaching on different courses at the university. Then as individual, right, you are also expected that at the end of the day, you shall be asked to present seminars, as in attend workshops in your department, present seminars, write 10 papers, then speak to the 10 papers you have written. Otherwise, your lecturers shall not collect them, or even when they collect them, they still say you should come and defend what you have written. Now, why all these processes? Because we want to know that you are the ones that have written it, not sitting down somewhere and your friends shall have written down the assignment for you. Your own is just to sit down and copy it. All those things are not necessary and they will not help you. And therefore, as students, so you are bound to pay serious attention to whatever you're doing, and that will mandate you to jot down points. These points that you're jotting down at lectures will form the outlining, and it has been or it shall be through this outlining that you're jotting down that you will be able to make your notes at the end of the day. And then after having made your note, then you shall go into the summary and all that. Then what is an outline? An outline is a skeletal form of presentation of the essential details. An outline is an essential skeletal representation of the essential details of the contents of a piece of writing. Essential representation or representation of the essential details of a given piece of writing, which means there is this piece of writing that shall be given to you or you will give to yourself. That is when you shall go to the library to consult materials that are related to the subject you are reading or studying and things like that. And so you give yourself the duty, the function to make sure that you read essentially, as in read effectively, and then be able to take down notes of what you're saying. Jot down points, because these points will enable you to make notes, and will also enable you to write summary at the end of the day. Like I've already said, I said an outline is a form of skeletal representation of the essential details of any given piece of writing. Then again, we can also see it as a piece of communication. It is a piece of communication. And this piece of communication is contained in the original. And that original is the given piece of writing that is before you, or that you yourself shall go to the library to read, and all that. Then what are other issues we should look at when we are looking at an outline, or when you, the student, you're looking at an outline, looking at an outline? I said, writing an outline necessitates the use of a formal system. It necessitates the use of a formal system. What do I mean by use of formal system? Then that will now bring us into looking at the definition of an outline from the linguist perspective. According to Afolayan and Museum 1983, they define an outline as a formal, detailed statement of the content or a structure of writing. Formal, detailed statement of the contents and the structure of a piece of writing. Formal, detailed statement, which means this statement that you're going to put down are recorded. The ideas, the concept, the facts are contained in the original information that have been given to you, or that you have given to yourself, or that you shall give to yourself. Then again, your ability to be able to read and to be able to read effectively is what will enable your outline to be complete, your outlining to be complete. And therefore, this outline is a kind of memory device. It helps your memory. It helps your ability to retain whatever you have been taught, or whatever you shall read, and all that. So it is something that aids your memory. And like I've already said, I say it is a skeletal representation of a piece of writing, a skeletal representation of a piece of any given writing. And of course, being a piece of given writing, this writing, a piece of given, any piece of writing, or the contents in which you have been exposed to. So in this case, let us look at the format of an outline, the format of outlining. It is important for you to note the category or the different formats that are involved in an outline or in outlining. For instance, you can choose to use Roman numerals. For instance, point number one, we can say the role of education in nation building. Under this topic, the role of education in nation building, in my outline, I decide to use Roman numerals 1. And that Roman numeral 1, I said educational concepts and growth. Educational concepts and growth. Then under the educational concepts and growth, I have other subordinate points, other ideas that I want to bring into focus to be able to explain the outlining, right? Then in this case, I choose to use a small letter A, as in letters of the alphabet, not the capital letters of the alphabet, but the small letters of the alphabet. Of course, it depends. If I choose to use a capital or letters of the alphabet as the main format of my outlining, then the subordinate ideas, that is the other points that I want to develop under the major point, I will then use Roman numerals, or I can use Roman figure. But in this case, like I've already pointed out, that I've made Roman numeral as my format to explain the points that I have under the role of education in nation building. So point number 2, I say educational and civilization. Educational and civilization. Here I have other points to explain what I mean by educational and civilization. In this case, I say education is necessary factor in human socialization. Education is necessary factor in human socialization. Then after having said that, like I've already given the example here as educational concept and growth, under it I have education is an essential factor in nation building. I said it is a process of developing the human intellect. And then I also said that it is a means of eradicating ignorance. It's a means of eradicating ignorance. Then under B, that is my outline, form B, I use capital letter B. Then in it, other ideas to explain the main idea that I have here, I use Roman numeral. Then the example continues. Say under the outlining format 2, which I've said that education helps in promoting literacy and civilization. Here I said it leads to social development as people interact with one another, that it leads to social development as people interact with one another. Here in your different departments, in the different courses that you are exposed to at the university, there is need for you to interact. As you interact, you rub minds, and therefore ideas, there is cross breeding of ideas, exchange of ideas in whatever you are doing. Then again, in my outline C, I said education and economic growth. The importance is that without education, there will be no economic growth and all that. Now, let us look at this is an outline in the class, as in taking down notes in the class, what the lecturer is saying. Then, how do you undertake the process of outlining in a text? And I want to give this instruction. When you are reading from the text, or when you go to the library to consult materials, please don't rule lines into the library materials. Don't use your Bible to scribble anything into the library text. Make sure you go to the library with your exercise book. And in the exercise book, you'll be able to do your jotting. When you notice important points you want to take out from the textbook, write it in your reading, in your jotter. Then also other subordinate point, that is subordinate point, or other important point that will help you to explain the main point, also jot it down. Then another thing I want you to understand is that beside the main point, I've already explained that in a different way. Beside the main point, then you have subordinate points. That is other point that you have developed, that you have written down in order to help you master the topic efficiently, and also to help you to explain the ideas that the notes or the point the lecturer has said, and other things within what you are reading or what you are writing. If it's a lecture, or you make down some jotting so that you'll be able to explain the note when you shall be making the note, because after outlining you still get to note making and note taking and all that. But what you are doing in the process of outlining is that you are taking down notes. You are doing what? You are taking down notes. But these notes that you are taking down are not verbatim. That is, you're not going to record the lecturer word for word, phrase for phrase, sentence for sentence. No, you only take down the key points, the emphasis that the lecturer has given out in the course of lecturing. Jot those points down. And when you are jotting down these points, you are taking down notes. That then leads us into the second aspect of this lecture, which is note taking. But before coming to note taking, let me still emphasize more on the process of format, that is outlining format, outlining format. For instance, you have the major division. That major division are the important ideas that you have jotted down in the course of taking down notes from lecture. Then again, if it is at the library, the important ideas that you have recorded in the course of reading through the material, the textbook, the journal, article, and all that. Those important ideas that you have jotted, and these important ideas are often always the writer's statement That is the initial statement by the writer, the important statement contained in the content of what you are reading or what you are writing in the course of lecture. Then we have subdivision. Subdivision, for instance, in my own case, I've given the major division as 1. Arabic numeral 1. Then the subdivision, I say 1.1. 1.1, this other one is to explain the point number 1, the major point, plus the subdivision of the outlining that I've given. Then again, I say further subdivision. This further subdivision has to do with other ideas you believe you should add to what the lecturer has said. Maybe the lecturer made other statement in after he has issued or after he has indicated the major point. Then he made other statement in order to explain the major point. Then after explaining the major point, he still make further statement to explain other points that he is making in the lecture. And of course, if this take place, your ability to record every one of it is what shall give you the format of outlining. And these points you have jotted down in the course of the lecture is also what will enable you to be able to develop your note, because it is important for you as a student not just to take down notes, but to develop the note your own way. Use your own phrases, use your own words, use your own understanding and develop the note. By so doing, it will register the impression of the lecture more in your mind. Within yourself, you know what you know, right? And you have the ability that you can explain this with or without the lecturer's assistant, or with or without the notes that you have written down. The same thing is applicable when you shall go to the library to read, because right now I believe you have started your processes of registration at the library, because without registration at the library, there's no way you will be allowed or you shall be allowed to use the library. And it is very, very important that you complete your registration at the library so that you'll be able to use your library, and therefore use the library to do your assignment, use the library to do personal reading, use the library to bring in, gather other materials that the lecturer shall not have said in the class, but you want to use them to boost your notes and all that. Then that brings us into the process of note taking. What is note taking? As I've already made mention of the fact that as a student at the university, it is important that you take down notes. If you don't take down your notes, I doubt your ability to scale through successfully. What will you depend on at the end of the day before the examination? What will you read if you don't take down notes? Is often always important that you take down notes in case the lecturer does not give notes, or even when the lecturer shall have given notes, the notes you take at lecture is often always much more comprehensive than the one you follow your friends to read, or you just want another person to explain to you. In fact, from the notes you shall have taken down at lecture, you can explain to your friends when they don't understand a particular point or where they would have missed out in the course of lecture. So note taking is a very, very important idea. It's an important tool in the university, in the course of studying at the university, Then again, besides taking down notes at lectures, you can also take down notes at workshop. As students at the university, you shall be exposed to various workshops. Workshops like writing your assignments, then coming to present it, to speak to your paper, speak to the assignment you have written. Now, what is the essence? So that the lecturer will know, be convinced that you wrote this assignment yourself, not that you would have sat down somewhere and copied it from your friends. Then again, it will also help you in seminar presentation. For instance, I like my students that when I recommend a particular book, primary text for them to read, then by the time I shall give them assignment, they will write the assignment by themselves. Then they will still come to the class and talk to the assignment. That is, speak to the assignment they had written. But By so doing, they shall have convinced me that they are serious students, without which I cannot take you serious. So what am I saying? Seminar, presentation, workshop, and conferences later at the end of the day, when you shall have graduated, you shall be attending conferences. And again, your head of department can just walk up to the lecture hall and say, you come and assist me to take down this information. And then your head of department or any lecturer will detect the information for those. So it is expected that you should be able to present it accurately, the way the lecturer or your senior friend or something like that shall have presented to you or shall have detected to you. So note taking is an important tool that you need as a student. One, it will act as a supplement to the materials that you have for that particular course. Then what are the things you must record during note taking? Only essential facts. Record essential facts. And essential facts can be collected from different sources. Like I've mentioned, textbook from the library, or the textbook you must have seen your friend holding, and then you want to collect it to read to see whether what the lecturer had taught at lecture are recorded inside that text. So it's important that at the end of the day, you take down note. Since these textbooks do not belong to you, you shall give it back to the owner. So you shall take down note, or you must take down note. It is very, very important. Then on the other hand, what are other points that you record when you take down note? I've made mention of facts. Then important ideas that are collected in the original content. The original content, when the lecturer is teaching, like what I'm doing, you take down the note of the important fact that I've mentioned. Don't struggle to take down this note verbatim, as in don't struggle to say everything or to record everything I am saying at lecture verbatim, because the moment you shall have missed out a particular phrase or a particular word, it renders such a note useless. Most importantly, if your neighbor, your friend would not have recorded that fact too. Then another thing I want you to understand is that when you're taking down note from the textbook, from the library, like I said, use your jotter. Don't rule any line. Don't draw any line. Don't use colored biro or colored pencil or pen to record or to rule lines, because there are some other people that will not be able or shall not be able to read texts that have been defaced. What do I mean by texts that have been defaced? As in you coloring it with your biro and things like that, because of because of what you want to get from the book and how you go about it. Then another thing is that do not struggle to take down note verbatim. I've said that and I'm repeating it again for the aspect of emphasis. And I've also made mention of the fact that whatever notes you are taking down should follow the outlining format. The outlining format is where you record the essential ideas, where you record the important facts, where you record the most important issues that the lecturer have said. Now, what are the requirements for good note taking? Requirements for good note taking. The number one aspect of that requirement is that have your study material handy, as in ready for note taking. Have your study material ready. If you want to use exercise book, go to Motion Ground, buy exercise book, buy each book for each course. Don't combine many courses within one exercise book, so that at the end of the day, you will be able to know the different lectures that you are offering at the university. And then when you also want to read, you'll be able to take a particular note which represents a particular lecture. Then another thing I want you to do is that do not struggle, like already I said, don't rule line. I've already said that, I'm repeating again and again. Do not try to develop the note in the textbook. Don't develop this note in the textbook. The textbook is not your own, and so it belongs to the university or it belongs to your friend. Don't write down anything in the university textbook. Use your jotter, use your exercise book and write it down. And then as you write down your notes, as you take down your note, make sure you leave spaces so that you'll be able to develop, as in to explain more to your own understanding. Now, the most important usefulness of note taking is for mental alertness, while because it will help you to bring to memory, bring to remembrance all what the lecturer has said in the course of the lecture. Then what are the stages of note taking? What are the stages of note taking? The number one stage of note taking is pre-lecture. What do I mean by pre-lecture? That is getting yourself ready to take down this note, getting your exercise book ready, your biro must be working, and then your mind too will be coordinated and active enough to be able to take down everything that the lecturer has said, not strictly to quote the lecturer verbatim, but being alert to the important ideas. Then note taking at lecture. At lecture, the lecturer has already started the process of lecturing. So you listen to the lecturer attentively. Be an effective listener. Be an effective listener, because if you are not an effective listener, you will not be able to record important notes for yourself, important facts for yourself, and make a very solid and good outlining. Then the third type of note taking or preparation for stages in note taking is post lecture. Post lecture is when you, as the student, after the lecture shall have ended, then you now sit down and read through what you had written, to check through the spelling mistakes, check through the punctuation marks, check through the phrases and the clauses, construction, and make sure you have all these things written properly. And then again, like I've already pointed out at lecture, make sure you are a good listener. Make sure you are an attentive listener, because if you are not an attentive listener, the possibility that when the lecturer is speaking or whatever point the lecturer is emphasizing on, if your friend distracts you, you are not likely to be able to record down anything. Then again, make sure you exempt yourself from the noise within the environment. How can you ask me the question, how can this be possible when my friends shall be talking? Don't listen to your friend. Don't allow them to distract you at lecture. Focus your mind on your lecturer. I remember in those days when I was a little girl, my teacher used to tell us that you listen to your lecturer's mouth. When you listen to your lecturer's mouth, you see the way the lecturer or the teacher keeps her mouth, the way she pronounces words and things like that. Then at the end of the day, you'll be able to remember even directly after the lecture shall have ended. So make sure that you record important points. Record the point as the lecturer is making. There are points that are important. For instance, now I have enumerated stages of taking down notes. I said pre-lecture, lecture, and post-lecture. In the course of taking down note at pre-lecture, I have made mention of the items you need. Make sure that your writing materials are handy. Make sure that you situate yourself, as in place yourself at the center, directly where the lecturer is, so that you'll be able to get what the lecturer is saying. Remove yourself from the noisy environment. How do you go about this? It's not that you leave the lecture hall, but don't allow your friends to distract you. Focus on the lecturer. Look at the lecturer's mouth. Listen to his articulation. Listen to our pronunciation. Listen to our points of emphasis. And by so doing, you will not miss out anything in the process of taking down notes. Then again, be alert to personal illustration, as in when the lecturer is making personal illustration, as in subordinate illustration, some other points, observations, suggestions, in order to explain the point, the idea, the fact he or she has already given in the course of the lecture. Then the third stage of taking down notes is post-lecture. At post-lecture, this is where you as a student settle down to make sure that you check through your notes, correct the spelling mistakes, insert correct punctuation marks, look at the use of your preposition and all that, the adjectival phrases and all. Don't forget, last week we looked at the sentence We looked at the word classes of the before the sentence, the nominal group, the verbal group, which is the obligatory word. Then we have the adjectival group as well as the adverbial clause before we entered into looking at various anomalies, as in various errors or some common errors in sentences. So what am I saying? At post lecture, you are able, or you shall be able, or you must be able to observe all these things I have mentioned, all those things we had learned last week. And I told you that since the period is very short, it might not be possible for us to cover up everything. So you have to do the reading on your own. For instance, what I'm doing today is in chapter 8 of your communication in English. Now, to be able to be an effective student that take down your notes accurately, there are certain things you have to equip yourself with for you to be effective student in taking down notes. There are various things you have to equip yourself with. What are such things you have to equip yourself with? Make sure that you establish your grammatical errors. That is at post lecture. Post lecture, where you look up to what you had already done, check through it, look at, correct the phrases, give them sentence status, make sure the finite verb are indicated before it can be a complete sentence, change group of words, phrases to clauses that have sentence status and all that. Whereby these have not taken place, then know that you are not going to be able to make your note, because making your note in this instance means that you will have to use the ideas, the information you had recorded at lecture in form of outlining, and the process of taking down this note, this outlining. They are the materials that will guide you in your note making. And of course, in the process of note making is when you shall enter into post lecture stage. Like I've already made mention that I want to equip you with tools that can enable you to take down your notes, so as in to make down your notes, or to take down notes at lecture and to make your notes after lecture. What are such notes? That is some use of some abbreviations, or shorthands in the process of taking down notes. What are such examples? For instance, you can use NB to be able to indicate when you want to emphasize the important point, and then time will pass you by, or you shall not have the time to be able to explain. You can just say NB, and that NB immediately you see it at post lecture. That is, after the lecture shall have ended, at post lecture you quickly know that, okay, this place we wanted to write other point to explain what the lecturer has said. So that have been why you had written ND. That means note well. Then you can also bring in another abbreviation like DEV, develop, short form, like, because you can use D/COS and many other things, e.g., for example, then ED for editor, edit, and other examples. For instance, ESP for a special or especially, you can say compare, as in C abbreviation A. I have given many examples, and those examples are there. So in the course of looking at it, it will guide you in the process of taking down note. Then here I have said, for instance, LAN for language. You want to say language, and then time does not permit you to spell it out. You just write LANG. Then again, school. You can just say ACH and all other abbreviations that you know. For instance, for the definite article, THE, you can just use letter D with abbreviation. Then lines, you can use LL. And then again, if, for instance, you're taking down notes and then the lecturer is using mother tongue, for instance, mother tongue or first language, you can use L1. Then second language user, you can use L2. And many other examples. For instance, when the lecturer shall say, during the 18th century English novel, instead of spelling out 18th century, just write 18, Roman and Arabic numeral 18, and then you put th on top. That's your, then in bracket you can write CEN to represent century and all other things like that. For instance, when you're saying and others, you can use a tall ET abbreviation, then AL, another abbreviation, and that will say and others. That will signify for like and others. Then let us get into note making from textbooks. Note making from textbooks. How do you go about this? I want to explain more, emphasize more on what I've already said. What you need is your mental alertness. Your mental alertness is very, very important. What does this mean? If you're not well, if you're not sound in health, there's no way you can take down or make your notes from textbook at the library or textbooks in the library or any textbook. It might not be in the library. The textbooks available to you, you will not be able to make your notes. Then you ask me the question, what does my health has to do with my reading? It has everything, a whole world of good to do with it. Because if you're not well, your mind will be thinking on the state of your health rather than concentrating on what you are reading. One. Two, there is bound to be regression. Regression. What do I mean by regression? The process of going over what you had already done. You read the first sentence to the end, maybe the first paragraph to the end, and you find out at the end of the day that you have not assimilated nothing. Then you go over it again. That is regression. Then again, there will also be a process of digression. What do I mean by digression? While you are pretending or claiming to read the material before you, you find out that your mind has wandered away completely from the library or from the textbook or from the classroom, and your mind is at home. But your physical body, you are at the library. That should be avoided at all costs if you must take down notes from the textbook. Then again, you must make sure that your eye, as in your sight, is working perfectly. If you have if you have the problem of sight, then you have to correct it. If you need to use glasses, tell your parents so that they can quickly take you to see the ophthalmologist so that they can make a glass for you or a pair of glasses for you and things like that. Or maybe you see the doctor. But if your eyesight is not working effectively, there's no way you'll be able to do effective reading so as to take down notes from textbook. Then another thing I want you to understand is that you must make sure that you are able to differentiate between phrases and clauses. Note that phrases do not have sentence stature. Phrases do not have sentence status. They are just group of words that don't have ideas. They don't make complete thought. They don't make a complete sense. They're just group of words. But clauses have sentence status than phrases. Why? Because a clause has a finite verb. And what is a sentence? The sentence is a group of words that has the finite verb. It has the subject, has the predicate, and all other part or components within that sentence. Component, for instance, the SPC, like I explained to you last week, S there signifies the subject, P is the predicate, which is the obligatory word, which is the verb, and the verb can come in form of the main verb or the verbal group. When you say, I shall be reading at the library, I shall be sweeping the floor by the evening, right? That is when once it shall be evening, I shall be sweeping the floor. So shall be sweeping has become the verbal clause. Sorry, the verbal phrase that function in that sentence. But what I'm saying is that the point I'm making is that there must be an obligatory word. The obligatory word is the predicate for you to be able to make your note effectively. Then another thing is your comprehension. your ability to comprehend. If you don't comprehend what you are reading from the textbook, there's no way you'll be able to identify the key ideas from the subordinate ideas that the writer has presented in the piece of communication before you. This piece of communication can either be written form or oral form. The oral form of communication is at lecture, but the written form of communication is from the textbook. When you shall read the textbook available to you, you go to the library to work out your assignment, to write out your assignment, you read the textbook. So the written piece of communication are the textbook materials, ideas, factual accounts, information that you are going to source from the reading textbook. But the oral piece of communication are the various lectures that your lecturer shall expose you to, or you shall be exposed to in the course of writing your courses this semester and throughout your year one, even throughout your 4-year stay at the university or 5-year stay at the university, respectively. Now, let us quickly move into the last aspect of it, which is summary writing. But there is an information I want to pass across to every one of you. Listen and listen carefully. What is this piece of information? Do not form the habit of tearing out textbook pages from the textbook that you shall come across, or that you shall be exposed to, or you shall lay hands on to read at the library. If you tear the pages of those books away, why? Because you have seen some information located on various or specific pages that are related or relevant to what you are writing, and then you believe you have made a whole world of good, and so you now cut off the textbook or tear the textbook. The implication is that another person shall not be able to use that textbook. 1, 2, you would have ended up destroying the university property, and then there are other students, generations of students that the university shall admit at the end of the day, and by the time they get into the library thinking that those books are still valuable and useful, that those books are still valuable and useful, not knowing that this student that you shall be fond or you are fond of, or you shall be fond of tearing those pages away, had already damaged and destroyed such valuable books. It is not good. So I warn you against it. Such a barbaric act, and don't do it. Don't forget, the Bible said in the book of Galatians chapter 6 verse 7 to 8, it said, do not be deceived. Don't pretend. Whether the lecturers follow you to the library, whether the librarian follow you to the reading shelf or not, whether anybody follows you there, allow God and your conscience to guide you. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever anybody sows while you are on this flesh, you will certainly reap it. And so as you are a student, make sure you don't destroy the university property. Don't destroy the university books, most especially this book, because you're not the only one that the university bought the books for. The university have put the books, stored the books in the library for generations of people that will use them, including staff and other people. Then that will now bring us into summary. What is summary, and how do you go about summary writing? A summary is a brief statement of the essential fact. It is a brief statement of the essential fact. When I was giving you the definition of an outline, I said an outline is a skeletal representation of the essential fact. Now, here in summary, I said it is the brief statement of the essential fact, which means that it is not all the phrases, all the sentences, all the paragraphs, and all the pages that the writer has exposed to you in the course of writing that textbook, but only a brief statement of the essential fact. Because in every writing, there are essential facts contained in them. And these essential facts are what you collect in the process of summary. Don't forget, for instance, during comprehension exercise, reading and comprehension exercise, the lecturer can ask you to summarize a particular chapter, a chapter that is made up of maybe 5 pages, then summarize it in 3 sentences. It is not everything that the writer has written in that chapter that you are going to summarize. You only look out for the essential facts in that sentence, in that book, in that reading material before you can summarize. Then again, I also want you to know that the length of the summary is not specified. The length of any summary is not specified, but you make sure you try as much as possible to represent the original text, the original ideas, the original notions that the writer had put in the course of writing the material. The original ideas will be there, as in they or use your own word to extract the original ideas and present them in a way that will be understood or that shall be understood. Do not copy the writer's statement verbatim, but copy the essential aspect, extract the essential aspect, and then use your own word to explain them. And again, I emphasize, if you don't read with comprehension, there's no way you can write summary. You must be an effective and efficient reader before you can write a good summary. Then another thing I want you to note is that when you are summarizing, in fact, that will now lead me into the next stage. What are the vital requirements for good writing, that is for good summary? The number one aspect is that you summarize after proper reading. Summarize after proper reading. The implication is that you read the particular given information or given communication, whether oral or spoken communication or written, sorry, oral or spoken communication or written communication before you. Read them effectively, read them thoroughly so that you'll be able to grasp the essential idea, the important facts that are distributed or scattered all over the pages of the paragraphs that the writer has presented to you before you can summarize. If these have not taken place, summary will not be effective. Then again, the nature and composition of each paragraph is very, very important, because one paragraph is often linked to another paragraph, and whereby this understanding, that is, there is no flow and coherence reading and effective grasping, that is comprehension of what you're reading, then you cannot write this summary. Another thing I want you to note is that while you are writing the summary, it requires second and third reading. It requires what? Second and third reading. The implication is that when you are reading, make sure that you read it with understanding. Do not involve in digression, as in digressing from one place to the other, as in moving in your mind, moving your eyes, scouting around for events. If that is what is happening to you, summary, you won't be able to summarize. Then again, avoid your own personal views. Do not do not bring in your personal views when you are writing summary. Then another thing is that you try as much as possible to use your own words. Get the essential idea, the important idea, facts that the piece of communication has presented to you. Use that idea in your own words to present the various structure in the process of summary. Then what are the things you should note in the process of summarizing? The number one point is that put in your own word. I am repeating what I've already said. Put in your own word what the idea, the fact you have collected from the written material before you. And that now brings me into bringing in what this critic have said. For instance, Temple M, 1978, suggests that in order to be able to write a good summary, you must give consideration to the following. One, state clearly and in simple terms the ideas in which you have extracted from the original material. State clearly in simple terms the facts and ideas which you have extracted from the original material. Then two, be as brief as possible. Be as brief as possible in detecting the original ideas. Be very brief in detecting the original ideas. And then avoid high superflown expression. What do I mean by high superflown expression? Don't try to please your reader by bringing in vocabulary that are higher than you, vocabulary that you yourself you don't know what they mean, vocabulary that you cannot explain effectively to your listener, because your reader becomes your listener, and whereby your facts are not clear, your listener will not be able to understand. Then what are the things you must look out for when you are writing the summary? Here I say generalizing. I say, for instance, state the main points clearly, not writing details example. Don't bring in details examples, and don't also bring in putting detailed illustrations in the course of writing summary. Here I say try as much as possible as recasting the sentences. Recast the sentences. Don't put it the way you have copied from the original material, the original given piece of material, or the original given piece of information. That is the textbook that is presented before you and all that. Don't copy everything that is written there, right? Pick out the essential ideas, the essential fact, then use your own words to be able to explain them. Then here I said, try as much as possible to bring, to use figurative languages. That is, try as much as possible, take that again, sorry. Try as much as possible to avoid figurative languages. What do I mean by that? Use expression that you understand, expression that your reader will also understand. Don't use the expression that it is you alone that understand what you're writing. Since you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for the public, and so your reader should be able to understand you. For instance, I'll become your first reader when I shall read through your assignment. If you present an assignment that I do not understand, it means the essence of giving you that assignment is defeated, and so I might not, or I shall not be able to score you the correct mark I'm supposed to have given to you, because I do not understand what you are writing. So make yourself simple, and clarity is one of the key words of summary writing. Then again, avoid redundancy and repetition. I take that up again. I say avoid redundancy and repetition. What do I mean by that? Words that do not make meaning. Words that end up making the meaning impede. Avoid such words. Let there be clarity in whatever you are writing. When there is clarity, then you will have been known to have written a good summary. But if there is no clarity, the summary, the effect and the essence of writing the summary is completely defeated. Now, the process or method of summary from longer passages. There are processes you should follow while summarizing from longer passages. And what do I mean? Make sure, okay, let me quickly mention this before I get to this aspect. Use reported speeches when you are writing your summary. Use reported speeches when you are writing your summary. Do not write as if you are the original writer of the piece of information before you. You are reporting what another person had already written, and so for that reason you must use reported speech. The writer said, or it was recorded, it was mentioned. All these, the passive phrases and the passive involvement of words, right, will help you to achieve this. The methods of the method of summary of longer passages. Method of summary of longer passages. Now, out here, I want to quickly refer us to what Maddox, 1963, said should be the guide when you are summarizing longer passages. Here, the scholar made us to understand that you must first and foremost read through the whole passage. Read through the whole passage. When you read through the whole passage the first time, read through the whole passage the second time, then begin to ask yourself the question, what is it all about? What have I gathered? What is the writer saying? Of what information, of what value does the writer wants this piece of writing to have on the society, or what does the writer want me to gain by presenting this material before me? Then two, he said you should carefully reread the passage 2 or 3 times. Now, the essence of rereading this passage 2 to 3 times is to make you grasp its exact meaning, grasp its exact meaning, because this meaning you are not likely to grasp it at the first instant. You can only grasp it after you have read through the passage the first time, the second time, if possible, the third time. And of course, since you are reading, don't forget, it's not like a physical lecture where the lecturer will ask you, do you understand what you are writing or what you are listening to? Can I go over it again? And things like that. But in the process of writing note or writing summary from the textbook, listen, it is you and the writer. The writer is not a human being whom you can touch or you can feel is present, but it is your eye, your brain, and your consciousness that will be able to feel the impact, the import of what the writer has presented to you. And also know that you are alone. What do I mean by being alone? Is you and the reading material at the library. You didn't go to the, even if you were to have come to the library or come to the university with your parent, your parent cannot follow you all over the places. So it's you that have been sent to the university, and it's you that must achieve the purpose and the essence for being at the university. What is the implication of what I'm saying? When you get to the library, know that you are on your own. Concentrate. Get the best out of the period you are going to stay at the library. There are assignments that shall be given to. Personally, I like it when students add extra materials to what they had, to the point I've already given in the class. Or maybe when you shall be presenting seminars to me, as in writing your assignment and then coming to read to us in the class, and I will score you mark. I shall expect you to go to the library, add additional information that I would not have given in the class. Or again, maybe you want to, for instance, analyze why Chinua Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart, right? Why, what to analyze it. So in that case, you have to bring in the concept of what could have prompted Chinua Achebe in writing Things Fall Apart. You know that it could have been nothing other than the Eurocentric, that is, the European assumption, the Western assumption that Africans did not contribute anything towards the world civilization, or that Africans did not contribute anything towards the world literature. And how do you get this information? It's not from your mommy's kitchen, neither is it from motion ground, but it is from information you shall gather from materials that are scattered all over the university library, in the important encyclopedia, important textbook that your university has already stored them in the library for you. So make use of the library, bring in this additional information, write your assignment clearly, and score your B, at most B, and then you'll be happy, and your lecturer too will be happy. Then again, make sure that your summary takes into consideration only the essential points. I emphasize it again. Only the essential points. Only the essential points, the essential fact. Those are the things that your summary must take into consideration. And then you use your own word to be able to explain precisely, right, all what the information the lecturer has given you. Explain it in your own ways, and by the time you explain it in your own ways, it makes it robust. Now, after having said this, I want to quickly say that in this lecture today, we have taken into cognizance the concept of outlining, note taking, note making, and summary. in outlining, I said when you get to the library and to the lecture hall, make sure you get down the fact as in the key points, the key ideas, the essential issues that the lecturer shall mention in the course of teaching a particular topic throughout a particular topic and other topics embedded within the course outline. So your ability to be able to take down, jot down points, only the essential points, is what leads you into note taking, because the process of taking down these essential points, representing them point by point, as in explaining them item by item, are what will enable you to make notes. Then that leads us into note making from the lecture and note making from the textbook. Note making from the lecture is easier, often always easier than note making from the textbook.